Hello, my name is Michael Craig Afo, the editor for EnergyNewsAfrica.com. We usually look for industry players and have a conversation with them. So today we are happy to have Dr. Patrick Ofori, who is the Chief Executive Officer for the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies, in short, CBOD. Doc, we are happy to have you on Energy News Africa platform.
Thank you. I'm also
Yes, you were appointed as CEO of this noble institution in 2022, August. Exactly August, in the next few couple of weeks, will be exactly a year. Since you took over the administration of this noble institution, what can you share with Energy News Africa online platform?
Oh, thank you. I think overall, it's been very challenging, but also exciting. And I can also commend my predecessor and the board of directors for the chamber for that wonderful job that they've done to build that institution worth its salt. So far, the earlier periods, my first 100 days was more or less confronted with the depreciation of the currency and then also the surge in international crude oil prices, which the two factors that we all know plays a predominant role in pump prices in Ghana were all against us, against the backdrop of the overall country ratings that we got from the various rating agencies, which did not necessarily augur well for the sector. And I think if there's one person that also need commendation, it's the Minister of Energy, Honorable Dr. Matthew Kuku-Prempeh, and the Governor of the Central Bank, whereby they instituted the BDC forest auction, which breathed some form of fresh air within the country for supply security and then also availability. And I think the two personalities did a yeoman's job by instituting that. And that single policy that decision by government and its science really helped ensure that the country did not break down and that we never encountered the fuel shortages that almost all our neighbors, France and part of London and a couple of other countries within the sub-region created that panic. So I think they did well. And I think the members also did well, although most of them lost key assets in the process because the market really hit them in their books. But overall, I think for God and country, the private sector and the government dialogue help move the nation from a very dark situation.
Yeah, you said it's been challenging and also exciting. So basically what you are telling us, from what you have enumerated, I could probably put it at the side of the exciting one. What are some of the challenges that you have faced almost a year now?
I think that I wouldn't want to see those challenges negatives, because out of challenges, that is why leaders are created, to come up with innovative ways and creative ways in coming out of that. So a typical example is the challenging times that I was talking about the FX liquidity issues and the FX availability. That gave birth to the BDC forest auction. And through that, they were able to build some element of confidence to ensure that the international oil traders continue to supply the Ghana market. Being able to sail that through and other dialogue opportunities and that also came up with that has helped build the various players to also appreciate the need for some elements of policy reforms, and then also some element of collective responsibility, which I think will augur well for the overall growth of our sector.
You were working in the upstream sector before you now moved to downstream. Looking at the two areas, I mean, are there similarities? And if there are similarities, what exactly are they? And are you able to share with us?
The similarities are that both are high pressure environments. The upstream also detailed a host of challenging times, and that were also tough that you needed to navigate with all the various obstacles coupled with the downstream. So what I can basically say is they are both challenging. But the good thing is, whilst even at upstream, my last role in there propelled me to be able to make the transition into downstream, because definitely if you are dealing with the marketing of the crude is somehow similar to the trading of the refined products. And based on that, it also propelled me to build the necessary network and the needed skill set and knowledge to be able to navigate across the lobbying, the research, and then also the network that was critical for such a position.
Your predecessor was a foundational member of this noble institution. He carried the organization from scratch to 10 years, and he stepped down and making way for you to take over. From where he built this organization to, one will ask, do you have the strength, the capacity to push it to where you will look back in future and say, well, it was good I came to be part of this noble institution?
Certainly, that was what challenged me to accept that. And if you known my trajectory as a professional, I've moved from such key institutions, and then in terms of building organizations and also building upon what others have done, I've demonstrated that with my past experience and then also exposure. And in addition to what you just asked, every individual is unique in its own way. And not only that, when you are building institutions, when you are starting, the strategy may be different from when the institution is more than 10 years old. So basically, they will also require different skill set and a different approach in dealing with that. Clearly, nobody can discount the influence and then also the knowledge base of my predecessor. In overall, I wouldn't even say only the downstream. He's smart, intelligent guy who has really contributed towards the growth of the Ghanaian economy in the area of energy, downstream, petroleum, and then even upstream, and also by sitting on other key boards and institutions that has also helped shape policy. He's been also around in the finance and the agro business sector. So his versatility is something that nobody can take away from. And that clearly set a tone. But what I reckon and see is that I see it rather as a source of motivation and as a challenge to build upon an institution that they've toiled to build. And the key to all this is the stability that the institution has also enjoyed, and the tradition and the records that also exist, because you check, the board composition hasn't changed, and the forefathers or the pay setters who build there still remains key allies of these institutions. And in my previous role too, most of these key personnel were also people that I have also built my own relationship with in trading, in also meeting in other energy gatherings. So overall, the chamber as a whole the board and the various CEOs and entrepreneurs of the member body has got the needed institutional memory and knowledge to help support the secretariat mover. I'm just an individual within the establishment, and definitely with my own strength and the strength of the institution, the staff in the Richard, Daisy, and all those people who work tirelessly to support my predecessor achieve that. These staff are still available to draw on their knowledge base to also help propel me. What is left for us to do is the key issues that borders on furthering the necessary or the needed collaboration that he has built to also move the organization forward. And I think we in-house, we have what it takes to be able to build on that as a team together. And I'm confident that we have what it takes to move Seaboard to the next level.
Your membership is more than 40, since the last time I checked. What is their current state? Because of the challenges in the industry, I understand some of them probably are pulling out of business. What is the current state of the Seaboard membership?
Yeah, the members, I think since I joined, I can say that we've managed to get to, I think, if 2 members on, and we are also in discussion with others to join. The face of the industry is changing, moving more into other aspects that we're seeking to also ensure that those who are somehow within the regulatory space of the MPA, we managed to cohort some of them. We've heard in other quarters that downstream gas and the midstream gas is going to be regulated by MPA. We are also in serious discussion with some of these key players to ensure that we are able to lure them to join, so that we can have a quality meeting that will seek to promote research and then also promote their individual and collective interests as private sector businessmen. Some
people suggest that it has come a time that we do away with bulk distribution company, because to them it was when ex-President Kufuor realized that the state was not in the capacity to ensure the regular supply of a petroleum product. That is how come Seaboard or BDCs came in. But where we have gotten to, there's no need for them to continue to operate.
I don't necessarily want to take your role by asking the question. But when they made those suggestions, did they propose an alternative structure?
Well, what they say is that we have a bust, and even now we have a Go Energy by Goil. So there's no need for other bulk distribution companies to operate.
I think that is so short-sightedness on the part of that. And if you happens to be in tour that time when President Kufuor created the bulk distribution, it was necessary, because can you imagine a state-controlled entity like a commodity like petroleum products? And if you are old enough to remember those days when toll staff go on strike and the whole country come to a standstill, the same issues could also happen at Boston with a state entity and those kind of conditions of service that they are entitled to, that gives them the union power and other things that they can take a whole government on. None of these private sectors present those risks associated with that. And don't also forget the BDC's contribution. People think that they are just in as a facade as a creation of a particular president, that we are not necessarily in support of his tradition or ideologies, and that is there to get rid of them. People forgot the investment that the BDCs have made. The BDCs alone, in terms of storage capacity of this country, the BDCs collectively as our members hold almost 70 to 75% of overall woolage availability to the country. So if these private sectors have not taken this initiative to propel that, would you have imagined the chaos in the system, in queues and other things? You look at Nigeria when they try to corner everything and use the through MPA and NNPs. That clearly demonstrated the fuel shortages that they encountered, because once it's centered around one institution and there is any major hiccups here, it becomes difficult for the system to grind. Not to talk about the number of people that the BDCs employ. If the BDCs, from their tank farms and then their finance, traders and cleaners and other affiliate service providers who also are in existence because of the BDC structure alone, you're talking about thousands of people in employment. Could all these people have been taken on by tour or bust? People have also tend to be short-sighted and they forget about a potential risk that the BDCs underwrite for the country to go on. As I'm speaking to you, there are some BDCs who lost their tank farms when the forest losses happened. We all know that this is a highly volatile situation. You are either being hit by international prices or foreign exchange losses. If all these losses were going to be situated on the balance sheet of the country, the state institution, where would it have been? And how best has those state institutions been run that have not created any form of losses? Has any of our members' losses been taken over by the state? So these are some of the things that I think when people say sit and just we just listen and then and laugh over it. But I will request that we push them to give further explanation. People would have still wanted to enjoy subsidy had the private sector not taking the lead to push government to decentralize. The ESLA and other initiatives that the chamber championed in terms of even policy reforms and their contribution, not to talk about in the form of even the CSR, but look at their tax contribution.
So from your point of view, you believe that it's because of the bulk distribution companies' role in the downstream industry that has guaranteed the regular supply of petroleum products, and not maybe the creation of the government of the day.
No. You know, government, you can't downplay the role that any government plays. But at least they've taken a key risk component of government, so that government can also focus and provide other social amenities and interventions that can ensure that a greater part of the country people feel comfortable. So the opportunity cost, we're trying to do a study of the 10 years of the deregulation, and then the opportunity cost of that amount of money that if we're using to pay fuel subsidies, and what that has been able to help the central government to do.
You believe it far outweighs?
It's far outweighs. It's far outweighs. Yes, and you know, when President Ofori created that, when President Ofori created the BDC concept, his main concept was to create the next generation of Ghanaian entrepreneurs into merging from what the likes of Michael Ritchie and the rest did by creating the other commodity trading companies that metamorphosed into Glencore, the Traffis and other things. So his main aim was that let's give them the opportunity by using the Ghana as a case and then build their capacity to be able to export. As I'm speaking to you, some of our members are the ones who are exporting to the neighboring countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali.
But look, even even despite the existence of the BDCs, we still have these IOTCs still bringing in product. Why haven't we gotten to the point where we stop them and making sure that the local BDCs are empowered to take up that challenge?
I think this is where, as a country, we need to develop a concerted effort in doing that. Like there are other things that we seek to do to push and then ensure that we enhance governance and then also help build the needed capital. You know, most of these IOTCs, the rare difference or the opportunity that they have is the ability for them to raise capital. That in Ghana, you can't get a single bank or group of banks to be able to raise that needed capital to push that agenda. So whereas the big IOTCs can raise funding from New York to Hong Kong, Singapore, our BDCs haven't developed that muscles. And don't forget, these people have been in this business over decades. And the whole BDC concept is just almost 2 years, it's just about 10, 15 years now. So you can't automatically compare their operational base. Don't also forget that they've got subsidiaries that even owns vessels and other logistic companies that they have stake in that ensure that they're able to move these volumes of products all over the world and all over the globe. That we don't have that muscles to be able to do that. There is not a single Ghanaian insurance company that can place an insurance for even a vessel, one vessel to be landed here or to be picked from Nigeria here. So clearly, they are disadvantaged in terms of other support services that are available to them to be able to leverage on to grow. But I think with time, as we try as much as possible to build the institutions, they can also leverage on to do that. A typical example, what is the single obligor limit for a bank in Ghana that they are talking about? Is it some of the banks are supposed to be recapitalized, even if it's 10 billion. 10 billion is 10 billion is about, assuming it's even $100 million. $100 million can only land 2 cargoes. So it means within a quarter, what a bank needs to be able to even stay afloat is just a trading activity for 1 BDC in a quarter if the person is bringing 2 cargoes.
Yeah, no, now let's focus on the Good for Oil program. In 2022, we were all in this country when we started seeing crude prices soaring on the international market, and it trickled down to the pump prices to the extent that somewhere in October, November, diesel could be sold 23 cedis per liter. And we were there when we saw a post by Vice President that government is engaging, all the stakeholders to come out with a policy, and later on we said Good for Oil program. What is your understanding about the program?
I think the program or the concept, the overall conceptual framework of the program is laudable. It's laudable that I think is born out of necessity, the creativity of the head of the economic management team, His Excellency Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. But our issue is the operationalization of certain concepts of that. And I'll come back to that. In the sense that if we, the concept is more or less, we are going to reserve proceeds from our gold exports, a portion of that, to help finance our crude importation. So basically, if, let's say, we export let's say, $100 million of gold. We, as a country, we've decided that we'll use, let's say, 10 or 30% of that allocated to maybe importation of refined products. We could also have decided that some proceeds from cocoa could be used for that, as has been done in other jurisdictions some years. Jamaica first did that with Marco Ricci, exporting alumina for refined products in order for the country to move. So, as a chamber, at an individual level, we were all initially part of it. And that was why initial conversations that you were pushing that and said, no, you look at the concept and its intended purpose is laudable. You can't take certain things out from that. But then comes our major challenge. Our major challenge is that when a certain percentage of the market was to deliberately corner for bust to leverage on. And then you hear boss in other quarters, we want to ramp up to 100% to supply the whole market, creating a miniature Sonango where, or the NNPC, that one institution becomes the only one.
Does it mean they wanted to kick the BDCs out?
No, not to kick the BDCs out.
A certain percentage was apportioned for
no, the importation of the product
was apportioned for bust, but
we didn't
along the line wanted to go 100%.
Or do more than that, which we felt a bit we need to take a real look at it and assess the pros and cons of it. One, and that could have created more problems for us in the sense that, one, the overriding principle of G4O, the products coming from G4O was not supposed to go to the mines.
But now the portion is given to the mines.
No, it's still not going to the mines.
Okay.
But then that means that, what about those BDCs
that supplies
to the OMCs that send the products to the mines? If they don't have access to the accounts to land the product, obviously there will be difficulties for them to exist. Don't also forget that when the program was announced, we all know that people will still have the opportunity to conduct their businesses without necessarily any directive that will seek to disadvantage them. So when I have a terminal contract with my supplier that for the next 2 or 3 years, every quarterly or monthly, you are supposed to pick a certain volume of products from me. And then I'm now being forced that, well, you may need to forgo those contracts and then take from bust and pay in cedis. Obviously, contractual-wise, it raises red flags, and contract sanity and those issues came out, was obviously rearing its ugly head. Then comes the credit arrangement. If I have a supplier who is giving me 90 days credit, or let's say 120 days credit facility, I'm now being compelled to buy in cedi and buy from bust, cash and carry. So it means I have to either pre-finance my trading activities, which my original strategy or commercial arrangement, it doesn't situate well with. So that is one aspect of that. In addition to that, it also brings on two stress on working capital that you are moving around.
Because you are forced to go and pay cash.
You are forced to go and pay cash, or for you to exist, you need to go there. Then comes other commitments that you have. 1 or 2 BDCs then right, OMCs then right, I'm not interested in these products. because of the source or the origin of the product. So I want you to learn different products for me that you can't also ignore such. So if I have existing contract that will help me land product, that I can also supply my mines and supply those customers. Why would I want to change and buy from somebody that I believe and think that my trading capacity and efficiencies in my ability to hedge pricing that makes me competitive and trigger certain prices that also makes me commercially viable business to go and then buy from an institution that I know in terms of efficiency and trading skills and everything, I'm way ahead of.
You said something where your people, some of your people asking you to not to, or they declare their intention not to buy from a particular source, the sources that
our members didn't. Initially, we even were interested that we wanted to even aggregate the volumes that our members will take from BOSS to have that. But they decided they wanted to deal individually with the various BDCs. And then the other BDCs started matching BOSS because they could also get some second quarter. And our concern was basically the Lacan publication was delayed, and we know that BOSS had not been able to plan effectively to lock in their cargoes. So that situation somehow favors them. And once they knew that they can come in anytime, whenever they finish and come in, they skip everybody who was there. But now that it's published, that everybody is supposed to honor and plan accordingly, we'll make do on our side of the bargain and let other efficiencies and knowledge base be used to further that going forward.
So now that issue of Lakans, you can confidently say that it has been addressed or resolved.
It's been addressed, and I think collectively with also MPA, we also agree with our members that nobody should bring in any product for the month of June, so that we can clear the backlog.
Okay.
So although we've been having back and forth with that, the good thing is that the regulator and the other government agencies like the ministry have created, have rekindled the communication, faith, and the engagement that we used to have, and we all have come up to know that it's necessary for us to avoid situations whereby others were paying. I think 2 or 3 of my members I know from January to last week, each of them have paid a minimum $4.something million in demurrages alone. $4.something million, 4.2 and 4.8 or something.
Just because their cargo overstayed
at the port. So that was why we're all making those agitations. But clearly there are signs that we can coexist and plan better. And I think the regulator has set up a way. I would want to know what went into who, get what, and other things. And also as a citizen, we are worried about the activities of BOSS. If the products that they brought in are all gone, then at the end of the year, they can really account for the proceeds that will not come back with losses like it happening during a certain regime that created a whole lot of difficulty. You know, when the cycle is going on like this and you don't really take pause to assess the stock levels and the inflows and what other commitments and other things are going. And I think we are bringing in, the products are moving. That is where when you get so much exposed, you'll be found wanting. And a case can be made when some of our members even suffered the fate. We brought in the product at a point in time. The international price, you're locking at a certain price. And then the window opened, the prices have gone down. The exchange rate has moved from 12 to 10.5. Obviously, you've done your pricing already. And before you could say, Jack, those losses affect you.
So you fear it's possible that they could incur some losses?
Not that I fear. It's a warning that we also give to our members. Don't bring in what you don't have off-takers for. And they are aware. But the difference between normally operators of state institutions and these private businesses is that not until it comes to the end of the cycle, you actually can determine what losses have been accrued and who hits it. The major difference is that with these private entities, when it hits them, in a worst case scenario, I lose a member. But when it's a state institution, in the worst case scenario, I will be taxed extra to be used as a stimulus package or something to survive them. I always want the past to guide us in what we've done, and we've seen with TOR debt recovery levy. We've seen with bus margins. We've seen with ESLA, energy sector recovery levies, all that. Is the prudence that we are pushing.
As we are preparing to end this conversation, there are calls that Good for Oil program has to be reviewed. From your perspective or from the side of Seaboard, is that a call that you also be making? And if yes, what exactly do you want to be done as far as the program is concerned?
Oh, I think what I will call for is that we really need a market-driven data to benchmark some of the things that we are doing. Currently, what is bus stock levels? How fast are they able to move the product? If the product that they brought in within a 6-week period, everything is gone, good for it to continue. Yes, if there is the need for oil to continue, one of the key things that we also pushing for is that the forest that is accrued from the gold exports, the private sector should also be able to assess that to further their businesses, which is something that I know they are working on. So in terms of that, I think if we are able to look at it, and then also the credit cycle for them, and internally, we don't want it to be like the boss of old, the internal efficiencies and then the transparenciness and all that will be good. And many a times, the central government may have good intentions in setting up a policy, but the implementers may, on the other side, lose a bit of focus, and before we realize something that was intended for a right purpose may end up not achieving its overall policy directive. So I think they need to open up for more collaborations and deliberations, which we've always opened our arms to welcome them. But above all, I'm confident that if maybe they scale down a bit, 20-30%, and see how best it goes. They shouldn't bring in products that they don't have the capacity to even store. They don't have the knowledge for. They shouldn't bring product that within a certain cycle, it will be there that you all get exposed at the various front, because my major fear is as we are approaching summer, especially we all know diesel prices will be coming down. Yeah. With IMF coming on and coming to town, the currency has shown signs of stability, that is not moving that way. So it's not like if I have even the product in country and then the international price hits me, I can make gains with the depreciation of the city because the product is already in country. So in both cases, you need to be a bit tactical and be very extra smart and innovative, not to be bent.
Well, we are so much grateful. But before we conclude, what will be your last word as far as the industry is concerned?
I think I would want to commend the central bank, if for nothing at all, the BDC Forest auction that the governor led and his team and the minister, they came very handy for us. And that is the extent of, that is the kind of collaboration that we also want to build on, and to build strength in sharing various experiences from the private sector, so that they can also have an enhanced visibility of our trading and our operations. So some of the erroneous impression out there that people also create, that the BDCs brings in, and they use forest, they use forward. The forward rate. The forward rate, the famous forward rate was that BDCs never create the forward rate. And I'll use this opportunity to explain how it happened. I've come to the bank. The bank has given me an LC, let's say $10 million. Say, well, if I want to pay this amount in 2 weeks, how much will the dollar cost in 2 weeks' time? So the banks, per the analysts, will do their projection and say, no, in 2 weeks' time, this is how much. When you come to buy a dollar, from all the data available and all our stimulation, you'll be buying the dollar this. So they give that figure to us. We use that to price. So I know that I'm going to sell, let's say 2 KT for this window. I use that pricing, that exchange rate, to price it. My international partner, the IOTC, who have also given me maybe what we normally call open account, we also want to know how fast am I able to move that. So they, in conjunction with the local bank, create the escrows that we put the CD in. And they are interested in the dollar side. So they all have visibility with also the analyst. Yes, the bank is saying this. The CD is likely to be traded at this. We agree with that. So you use that for your pricing. So they know and also have visibility, because the competition in the market is so tight. They wouldn't want a situation whereby you use an outrageous exchange rate that you cannot compete in the market, and then you struggle to come and pay them. Neither are they also interested in you using an exchange rate that is not realistic, that ensure that by the time that you are coming to pay, you won't get the required amount of dollars to be able to pay them.
So, Doc, in a situation where maybe you do a forex rate of, let's say, 10 Ghana cedi to $1, even though they are per their analysis, the analysis or assessment, it should be 10 cedi to $1. But in the next 2 weeks, as based on their analysis and the the CD gains or the dollar drop, are you how will you address such situation?
When there is a gain or loss, in that sense, it hits.
Because you have already used it to price your
We've
product.
used it to price, but the rate that we are using, once the bank has given me that indication, I also lock in the quantity or the volume of dollar that I want. So in some situations, it hits the bank because let's say because yes, and then when I also try to be extra conservative, and then it also goes beyond a certain, and I think that I won't place in, I won't lock in the rate with the bank, and that I'm waiting and see, and at a later date, I go and then the rate that I use is higher than that, then it means I'm making the loss. But normally, those smart traders and the CFOs will want to have a blend. Whereas some will try to place some of their product on a cash basis to an OMCs. Others also price in using maybe 30 days to that OMC, because that OMC says, I'm coming to pay you in a month's time and not in 2 weeks. So you need to find multiple ways of dealing with the various customers that you are trading with in order to be efficient and also not to incur losses. But even if you are to stay afloat, you need to tread cautiously. But why? They will normally tell you, the smart treasurers will tell you, the moment I pick up a call from the bank and they say they've got these dollars, even if it's $50,000 that I can get on a daily basis, whatever I'm selling on cash, I need to quickly buy the dollars. In October there, I was sitting in front of one of my directors who was making a call to his CFO that he's called a bank. The bank can offer them $3 million at the rate of, I think, 12 point something, somewhere October. And then he used the 12 to price on the other side too. So the next day when he went to the bank, I think in 2 days' time, the bank said because they didn't finalize it, they are now selling it at 14.1. That was the period where that thing happened. So on that $3 million transaction alone, although the product is already gone, he sold the product. But the money moving transfers and it went through another bank before it got to the bank that was going to give him the dollars. Check 2 cities times 3 million. He incurred a loss. He incurred a loss. So that is how it is. So when people say that, and the BDCs use a forward rate, none of us is a currency trader. So when it's about the commodity side and that is where we do. But sometimes now we even have regulated the brokers, Forex FS brokers that the BOG has licensed. We call all of them for rates and then hedge and place here. I say, well, in 48 hours time, if I'm selling dollar to you, this is how much. You use that if you're expecting a CD payment to offset that. So sometimes when the politicians or the political communicators are speaking and saying that they can be forgiven, but when you have industry players raising such fallacious arguments, it's sad.
Well, we are so much grateful to you, Dr. Patrick Ofori, for spending time out of your busy schedule today to speak to us on a number of issues. We are very grateful.
Thank you. I'm also grateful. Thanks for listening.